Hi, everyone. Sorry, we are starting just a few minutes past 10:30. So we will begin. Faye, you can go ahead.
Hey, hello, everybody. Can we get a couple of thumbs up or just an acknowledgement in the chat that the 310 participants that have been so patiently waiting for us can now hear us and see the slides? Oh, yay. Okay, now the temperature can come down. Welcome, everybody. Thank you very much for coming to this overview session. Of course, you know that what happens is that when you plan this and you do such a good job of getting everything ready, you end up with some of the participants having their internet not working and others having Bell Canada or Rogers outside of their house working on things and them having to hotspot from phones. So that's what we were frantically dealing with while you couldn't see or hear us. So welcome and thank you for coming. This is the budget overview session for group child care centers for 2023. If you can believe it, we are in 2023 or about to. This is the time of year where none of us really know what year it is that we're in. I'm Faye Jose, and I'm the director of contract and finance. And we're going to start off this morning with a land acknowledgement and an African ancestral acknowledgement. And I would like to start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land that we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 of the Mississaugas of the Credit, and in Scarborough, east of Woodbine, the Williams Treaties signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. And moving over to the African ancestral acknowledgement. And Tony, I'm not sure if you're able to do this. If not, someone else will pick it up.
I can do it. The City of Toronto acknowledges all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
So just a little bit of a system overview and a few introductions that I would like to do for folks so that you can put some faces and names together if you have a screen on and are able to see. We have Tony War, who's a budget coordinator, and we have Jason Rodriguez, who is the manager of contract and finance. We have Adelina Caputi, who is the manager of contract and finance. Dina Warman, who is the project director for Canada Wide. When we did the presentation last week and we were in person and Dina was there, the whole room went, oh! So yes, Dina Warman is here. And we have Yvan Tremblay, who's here from our ITBT, that's our technology and business transformation side. So she's going to speak to us a little bit about budget app changes. And we have Sue Johnson, who is our PWE and general operating funding manager. I hope I got everybody. And if I didn't, apologies. I know that we do have some consultants online and we also have some budget coordinators here as well. A little bit of housekeeping. Like I said, we generally have cameras on when we're doing a presentation, but Adelina is one of the presenters and she's the one who has people working in the area, so she's going to leave her screen off because she's hotspotted from her phone. We're hoping that that will help with her being able to have direct connectivity all the way through. If we are going back and forth between folks, it's likely because who we had planned to talk may have cut out, so we'll do our best, but the main presenters are going to be Tony, Adelina, and Yvan. We're going to stop for questions throughout. We also have allowed for the hands function to be raised. So if you have a question, please use that. And then when you're finished with your question, take it down. With 300 people, over 300 on the call here, that's a lot of questions. We're going to do our best. It's the first time we've done this, so if you could please be patient with us. We also will do our best with questions submitted through the Q&A function on the webinar. If we don't get to your question, we're able to print off at the end. If you could, when you're putting your question in, just identify your location. And if we're not able to get to your question with so many participants, then we'll have one of us, and likely your budget consultant, will follow up with you. And now I just want to give a little bit of system overview. So, generally at these sessions, we start off with a little bit of the system overview and let you know that right now we currently, through the city budget, have the opportunity to place 30,700 subsidy spaces for eligible families. Currently, as of this morning, we have 22,924 placed. So we do have room, and what I'm wanting you to hear clearly from us today is that we're currently placing in all age groups, and there is subsidy available in all areas of the city. So for all children on the wait list who are eligible for a childcare fee subsidy, we are actively placing. The client services team wanted me to remind everybody about the vacancy to fill process, and there was an e-blast that came out with some of that information on it. Actually, did it go out yet? It may be coming this week. That might be the one that's coming to you tomorrow. But there's information coming that identifies that when an agency or a location has a vacancy, and you send an email to the kids line, so that's kidsline@toronto.ca, and make sure that the subject line heading says vacancy to fill. It's very important to get that right. There's hundreds of emails that come in every day to that kidsline@toronto.ca email address. And those are the ones that we prioritize when we see vacancy to fill so that we can support you with your enrollment. It's really important that you do not accept the family or the child until you've had a conversation and approval from the caseworker, including making sure that you're staying current with the portal. But like I said, when we're time placing all ages, all areas of the city. I wanted to also just highlight a little bit about the City of Toronto budget process. That's the larger City of Toronto budget. It has not been publicly announced. We're in an election year, so that changes our timing just slightly. And the City of Toronto budget launch will not happen until after the election and the new council is sworn in. So if you can watch the City of Toronto website for further information about that related to the children's services budget component of that and your ability for deputations. We know that all of you have been working really hard to adapt and adopt all of the system transformation. First of all, we all know that we came and are still coming through all of the changes that COVID brought, and that the system is also undergoing a massive shift with the provincial direction and implementation of Canada-wide early learning childcare. You'll hear that throughout this presentation referred to as Canada-wide, but also as CWELC. I want to thank everybody for their continued leadership, your patience as we learn, and your commitment as the system maintains regular business, as well as is starting to shift significantly and transform. And one of the things that I really focused on last week in the session is about how much of this is learning. And all of us in all aspects of our division are learning alongside with you. And every day we come up with aha moments and things that we think, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what to do. And we have to put our heads together and work with you to figure it out. So We encourage you to keep asking questions and keep letting us know when things are not making sense so that we can either find the answer for you, provide it for you, or think about what the impact of your question is on the sector as a whole. The other thing I wanted to just identify is that along with your workforce issues, we have also had a significant number of new staff. The caseworkers in particular, more than 50% of them are new. So your teaching and mentoring and guiding and patience with asking of questions is very much appreciated when you're working alongside us as we go through all of the system changes. And with that, Tony is going to take us through some of the agenda, just kind of what we're headed for to achieve and the objectives for the session this morning. So Tony, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Faye. Obviously, the agenda, the first part is the objective for the session and what we expect to achieve from today's information session. The timeline set for the 2023 budget, what we need to get started with your budgets, the budget guidelines that are currently posted on the public website. What's new in the budget application for 2023? We're covering the Canada-wide and early learning and childcare, or is referred to as CWELC, or as Canada-wide, as Faye had mentioned earlier. We'll be covering the budget training and resources that'll be available to you, and then the communication of the approved funding, and then questions and answers that are left at the end. Next slide, please. Okay, under the objectives, we have the 2023 group childcare budget process and expected business cycle timelines, that you'll have a better understanding of those. You'll gain an understanding of what's new for 2023 in the online application, the CWELC impact to the group childcare budget processes, and then know where and how to access support and resources for completing your budgets. Next slide, please. Okay, starting with the timelines, October 6th was our first information session, which is like today's session. Budgets went live as of yesterday, October the 11th. Between October the 11th, yesterday, and November 30th, we will be offering budget labs and training available for operators. November 30th is the due date for submission of your budget. That's important for two reasons. One is November 30th, by submitting on November 30th, it means that you're in compliance with your service agreement for fee subsidy with Toronto Children's Services. And also that by submitting by November 30th, it supports us in getting the information that we need regarding the funding required for 2023. And then March 31st is when we expect to have the approved funding communicated out to you or have it completed. And you'll notice at the bottom of the slide, there's also information with regards to other, previous slide. There you go. At the bottom of the slide here, there's a link there to our public website, which will give you information with regards to the business cycle with other important dates that that you're required to meet within the 2023 year. And we can go to the next slide. And I think then we're with Adelina from this point.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I'm Adelina. So I just wanted to apologize for not having my camera on. I'll try and turn it on throughout, but as I read through the next several slides, I'm going to keep it off just so the sound is clear and I don't get booted out. Okay, so to get started with your budgets, you will need to update and confirm agency and staff contact lists. This is something that you do annually when we complete the budgets. Update your days of operation. Prepare information required to complete the fee memo. And in doing that too, in preparation for your budget, it's good to have all of the information ready that you need to start your budget. So what you want to enter for your fees, your planned operating, and all that kind of fun stuff. So you'll also review the service offerings in the budget So what we would like to happen on for that is on the service offering and public fees tab, please review the service offerings that are there and ensure that they're still relevant and applicable to your operation. So this is your opportunity to look at those and then get in touch with your consultant or your budget coordinator to update that and change them, add or remove service offerings that you might need for 2023. As always, review your operating capacities. So if you've had lower operating capacities over the last few years as a result of COVID, please really consider that and update your budget to reflect how you truly plan to operate in 2023. It may mean more permanent capacity reduction, or if you really see your capacities increasing, you know, what are you really looking to how to operate for your center next year. All of this information impacts your per diem results, GOF funding, and Canada-wide funding. The fee memos need to be posted, so should be verified prior to the budget submission. So part of your submission is where you have to click on the view fee memo on tab 2, and then you review that, and then once you submit it, it's submitted with a signing authority as with the rest of the budget. So we consider that as it's been reviewed. And as it has been since we launched the system generated fee memo, you can post your own fee memo alongside the system generated one, but we do require you to post the fee memo that is prepared or populated in the budget. Okay, so the new guidelines are posted to the web, and yesterday was the official date of the budget launch. So you'll be able to find that information on our public website. The budget guidelines will provide details on the budget submission requirements, explain the revenue and expense lines in the budget, provide information on maximums and rules in the budget application, identify your responsibilities, and also it will highlight throughout the document the CWELC impact. So I recommend we've added like that acronym throughout the document and highlighted new for CWELC throughout the guidelines. So one easy way is just to do Control F and search that word CWELC or Canada-wide, and then you'll be able to kind of skim through the document and see where it's mentioned, and then you can read through those areas in more detail. Okay, so we have updated the budget guidelines to include steps on completing your budget that relate to Canada-wide. So as I mentioned, the best way to find that is just to search the document for CWELC. TCS is working with the existing online budget application technology that we have in place, and we've added instructions into the guidelines to support your budget submission and any questions that you have related to Canada-wide and how Canada-wide might impact your budget. These instructions don't go into detail on CWELC funding specifically, because that is a whole separate process and there will be other information on Canada-wide funding, but rather they focus on how to submit the budget with 2023, the 2023 budget for CWELC or with CWELC. So essentially, the budget should be submitted with the same approach as in prior years. So really there's no significant change to how you're submitting your budget. I'll go into detail with some of the to clarify some of the pieces, but really there's no change. You're going to include your projected revenue, you're going to include your projected expenses, your capacity changes, and your days of operation. We continue to wait for the CWELC funding for 2023 guidelines. So continue to project your budget consistently with how you've done so in the past. TCS will, as always, review budgets for year-over-year variances, and that will support the review process as it has in the past as well. So for the revenue section, the full fee revenue line will include the projected Canada-wide affordability funding paid by TCS. So there is no, there's CWELC funding will not be entered separately. We have not added an additional line in the budget for you to enter Canada-wide funding. So basically, you're going to continue to enter your revenue similar to how you would have done so last year and the years before. So if there was $10,000 projected in Canada-wide, you're just going to continue including that in the full fee revenue line. The projected expenses should include regular salary increases, increases to operating costs related to cost of living, and any other planned increases to operating expenses. Also consider the impact related to expansion and reduction of operating capacities. So for tab 2, which is the service offerings and public fees tab, all centers, including those that are participating in the CWELC system, will continue to set the 2023 public fees in the budget. This is important and needed through the budget process in order for us to determine an accurate per diem. This rate that you will enter is different from what will be charged to families for those centers that are participating in Canada-wide. Families will be charged the reduced fee freeze rate reflected on the system-generated fee memo. This particular feature will be presented in a few slides by Evan. So we'll show you on the PowerPoint how that will show on the fee memo and what rate you would charge families. So again, the fee that you're going to be entering is different from the fee freeze rate, and it should accurately reflect your cost of care and your increasing costs for 2023, and whatever you would have charged if you were increasing your fees, what would you have entered in the budget? That's what we still want to see. As I mentioned already, we continue to require this information to establish accurate and appropriate per diem rates that will help us fund your per diem and fee subsidy and also determine the cost of the system. And as I mentioned already as well, the fees that are entered must cover the expenses in the budget. Oh, next slide, sorry. Okay, so for staffing salaries in the budget, budgeted salaries must not include any workforce compensation funding provided through the CWELC system. We encourage agencies to provide competitive compensation to their staff that is within the salary schedule in the budget guidelines. So I'll say that again. So do not enter any Canada-wide workforce compensation in the salary amounts. It should be exclusive of that funding. In 2023, the minimum hourly rate is $15.50. That was effective October 1st, 2022. And the base salary entered is exclusive of any grants like PWE and also the CWELC workforce compensation. And the base salary must meet the minimum wage as set out by the Ministry of Labor. We have increased the salary maximums for 2023 from the 2022 amounts. The maximum admin for 2023 is $125,558, and it's proportional to the locations with 90 children. So that hasn't changed. Summer camp dates. This is always a interesting, and sometimes we find we get questions on this, and it can get a little confusing depending on the fee structure. So the first day of the summer camp duration is Saturday, July 1st, and the last day is Sunday, September 3rd. So these are the first possible and last possible days. This may change depending on your fee structure, but it's important to have no gap in the dates from your before and after to your summer camp. So entering July 1st as the first day of camp will ensure that you are paid the correct full day rate for operators who qualify to receive payment for the stat holiday. And entering September 3rd as the last day of camp ensures that children flip back to the school year program on September 4th. And September 4th, which is Labor Day, is we pay the before and after rate. We don't pay the camp rate for Labor Day. If your fee structure for the summer is monthly or weekly and your school year fee is daily, you'll be paid the camp rate for July 1st to August 31st. If you offer camp beyond August 31st, the additional days would be recognized on this in tab 2 where you enter the PD days. So let's say beyond August 31st, there's 5 additional camp days. Enter, add the number 5 into your number of PD days. So essentially what happens with your per diem is it increases your per diem for the before and after offerings to reflect those additional days of full day care. Okay, so I'll stop for questions after this slide because I anticipate there might be some questions. So just some general reminders. Safe Restart funding must be used by December 31st and reflected in the audited financial statements. And this will be subject to recovery if it remains unused in 2023. Another reminder, audited financial statements ensure that you are communicating to your auditors the required format that TCS identifies in the audit guidelines for agencies. This is sometimes, it can be an issue that then we kind of have to go back and forth with the format of audited financial statements. So please ensure that you communicate that to the auditors in advance of them starting your audit. Another reminder, please update your Form 1's initial return notice of change forms that are filed with the Ministry of Government Services. This should always be up to date. We don't always request it, but we may request it, and it should always be current with your corporation. Okay, so I will stop for questions.
Adelina, there's a request for us to go back over slide 11. Tony, can you take us back to slide 11 just to go back over the gap of the summer camp fees? And then I see one question in the chat. Adelina, yeah, if you can just go over about the gap.
Okay, hold on. Let me find the question.
It just is, can you repeat slide 11?
Oh, the last part. Okay, okay. Okay, so yeah, so the first possible day of camp is July 1st, and the last possible day is September 3rd. And the important piece here is to ensure that there's no gap in the end of your BNA and the start of camp. So the way you select the dates for the service offerings, ensuring there's no gap there. And then again at the end of camp and when your BNA starts again.
And we have one question with a hand up, sorry. Jason, can you unmute? Yeah, and then Janet, you can go ahead.
Me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, perfect. In previous years, post-COVID, you have asked us to create a budget pre-pandemic. But this year, you're saying input a budget that truly reflects your operations. So if our intention is at some point, the challenge why we haven't gone to full operations is because we don't have staffing, but our intentions is to go back to pre-pandemic operations. What do we do for this year?
Thank you for your question. So yes, so we would like to see a budget that does reflect how you plan to operate. So if you continue to plan, I'll just throw an example, like 10 toddlers, but the last 2 years because of COVID, it was more around 5 or 6. If you do see that slowly increasing and you believe that you will get up to 10, then submit your budget with 10. I think it's more, we want to see those big differences where there was drops in rooms or like larger quantities where really there hasn't been the increase in enrollment. Then it's time, I think, to consider or to discuss with the board and the agency about how you're better you're better off planning your operations. The reason why too, this impacts the per diem significantly. So if you're planning to have 50 kids in the center, your expenses essentially are spread over 50 children. And if you're truly only operating with 35, and that's consistent, then it is better to reflect the 35 because your fixed expenses will get spread over those 35 children that are in the budget. So it is beneficial to review this and update it.
That's the only hand that I see. There's a couple of other questions in the chat, so I'll answer those in the chat, or one of us will. And I don't see any other hands.
Sorry, I had an additional question.
Sorry, go ahead, Janet.
Yes. So if our plan is to increase an additional room once we hire, should we reflect that as of January or when we think that there's going to be that expansion or additional program?
I would say to reflect it in the budget for the full year, but if you would like more one-on-one support with this, it's definitely something that you can talk to the consultant about. And you can look at, how your enrollment's been and how your existing operating capacities are. But in short, yes, I would say plan for the full year.
Okay, Faye, I think we have a question from Margaret, so I'm just going to unmute for Margaret's question.
Okay, go ahead, Margaret.
Wondering if you do this, then your expenses will likely go higher than 5%. Is there a cap, the 5% typical cap, or how is that going to work in 2023?
So I could start, Faye, and then you can jump in. So we typically look at the overall cost of the system once we get all the budgets in and we look at the changes to per diem, and then we look at the system to ensure that it's within our allocation. But there is no actual cap on the budget. So we really want you to put your true expenses in. And then through our analysis process, the budget is designed to disallow anything that exceeds maximums, like max salary. But then we do more analysis and approve the budget that way. So I suggest enter all of your expenses, and then we'll look at the result during our analysis and when we do approve funding.
Okay, we have a few more questions here. I will move to Margaret.
Oh, sorry, I already asked my question, I think.
That's an old legacy hand, so I'll remove that. And Catherine is up next.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So my question is to follow up with my previous question. Faye answered that you will be providing CWELC funding for the beginning of 2023 for us to reduce fees. my question is this CWELC funding for 2023 based on the public fees that we are inputting in the budget?
No, it's based on your fee freeze rate of March 27th.
But 2023 is, we would have increased costs due to inflation, staff salary increases and all that.
Go ahead,
So,
Dina.
yeah. Oh, so it's me, Dina. You can jump in after, but so we don't know exactly how we're going to fund 2023 Canada-wide yet, which is like for 2022, we did use your public fees that were entered, and that's how we are calculating the 2022 funding for Canada-wide. What you will charge families is based on that fee freeze rate. And we know that. So for 2023, you'll continue to charge families the reduced fee freeze rate. And in terms of the funding that we'll provide to you, we don't know that yet until we receive the guidelines from the province. I don't know, Dina, if you want to add anything. I don't think so. Silence is golden. Oh, Faye,
Dina, you're on mute.
Sorry, I tried to unmute in
Oh.
one area and didn't unmute in the other.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, yeah, thanks, Adelina. Just to reintroduce myself, I'm Dina Warman, the director of the Canada-wide project. And just to reiterate, we do not have the 2023 guidelines, so we don't know exactly how we're going to be funding it. But what I also want to clarify is that there's a fundamental difference now that we all have to start working with, in that what the cost of care is, which we're saying input your 2023 fees, that's your cost of care. We know the costs are going to go up. We anticipate that the Canada-wide funding will reflect that and cover the cost of care. So when families see a 50% reduction on their 2022 fees, we know it's actually like a 52% reduction, because it will include the inflationary cost as well. So the cost of care is your 2023 fee, which you will input, which is based on your budgeting practices. But the fee that families see is the 2022 fee freeze rate, which is now going to be 25% less if you're part of Canada-wide. And in starting December 31st, 2022, but really January 1st, 2023, it's going to be 50% less. So we kind of have to create a new lexicon within ourselves in terms of understanding what the word fee means. So there's the cost of care. And then, as Adelina said, we do not have the 2023 guidelines, so we don't know the exact way that we're going to fund. I can anticipate that it would be a similar process as we already do with your per diem, is that we would ensure we would probably advance money. I just want to, even though we don't know the exact details of how we're going to fund, we know we're not going to create any funding crisis. And we're going to make sure that you have the funding you need in time to provide that fee reduction to families. Thanks.
Okay, so thanks, Dina, for adding to that. I think we'll continue with these slides, and then we'll stop again in a few slides because I anticipate there might be more questions around the fee memo and the fees. So off to Yvonne.
Thank you. I was so busy reading all the good questions in the chat. I didn't realize it was my turn. So, very good questions today. Okay, so I'm going to speak to you a little bit about what's new in the budget application. As you probably have recognized in previous years, there's always some improvements essentially to help with the the completion of the operator budget, and also the submission of the budget as well. The first thing we're going to talk about, and it's the first thing you're going to notice, is that when you log in, we've improved the landing page. So there's been some changes made here. So once you go to your financial application, and then you go to childcare budgets, when you land on your budgets, you're going to see what you see now on the top, the new landing page layout. So essentially, the changes are really to improve the user interface and improve the experience. So if you're comparing from old to new, you're going to notice in the old at the bottom, the search filters have been improved. So you'll now have a drop-down menu to select your budget year as well as your budget status. And you'll also see from 2023 budget and in future years, you're going to see a new table layout. So especially for operators that have multiple locations, you'll see the list of locations in the table. And you'll see the layout has changed a little bit. If ever you go back to previous years, 2022 and before, you're going to see a table that's still similar to the one that you see in the bottom section, old, that's labeled old, so that's normal. So essentially, with the layout of the table, just some changes to the columns. You'll also notice that a main change there is that we used to have a snapshot column at the end on the right and then a fee memo column. We've now combined that into one column called related records. And once the fee memo generates after your budget submission, you're going to also see the fee memo under that column. Okay, so that's important. We haven't taken away the fee memo. It's going to show under the related records column. Okay, and that's it for this slide. So we can move to the next. Now I'm going to go through some general overviews. We are going to pause at the end of this slide because we know this slide in our previous session generated a lot of questions and some of those are already in the chat. So I'm going to go through the changes and we will pause for questions afterwards. So essentially, as you heard before, the budget is Canada-wide free, essentially, right? What did have to change though in the budget this year is the fee memo, because we will have some locations that are participating in the Canada-wide system and some locations that are not. Sorry, my phone is ringing and it's not on vibrate. There we go. So that's essentially the change that will be reflected because of Canada-wide in the 2023 budget. So there's going to be two fee memos that are generated. And remember when I'm explaining the changes, that the fee memo is really the tool that tells parents what they are paying, okay? So what your cost of care is and what fees that you enter in the budget is different than what families are paying this year because of the Canada-wide system, okay, for those that are participating. So the example at the top shows a fee memo for a location that is participating in the Canada-wide system. So you'll see at the top of the fee memo, there is a statement that says that the child care program is participating and the fee charged for eligible children is 50% of the 2022 fee freeze rate, okay? So for these participating locations, when the fee memo is generated by the system, you'll see a new column at the end, which is the 2022 fee freeze rate, and also states at the top of the column that eligible children are charged 50%. And then you'll see displayed in the column the fee freeze for 2022. And again, that is based on the provincial guidelines, what families are to pay in 2023. So you'll see that for the 2023 fee column, it's all not applicable except for school age. So school age fees would show here in the 2023 column, okay? For a location that's not participating, essentially the only change that you'll see is a statement at the top that explains that the child care program is not participating in the Canada-wide system. Okay. Another change here before we stop for questions, it's not showing here on these examples, but if you remember from previous years, if you charged additional or substituted fees for your kindergarten and school age programs on PD days, it would show up as a line underneath that service offering. Now it's going to show in the fee column, okay? So those are the main changes, and now I will stop for questions.
Okay, thanks, Yvan. I'm going to move it over to Cecilia for her question, and I have unmuted you so you can go ahead. Over to you, Cecilia.
Hi, thank you. My question is, in terms of the operating expenses and cost, what would be the acceptable inflation increase for the operating cost to 2023 from our actual 2022 expenses. Because I just want to make sure that, in order to mitigate any delay in the budget completion and submission and saving time on going back and making any adjustments, because if I'm advised that inflation increase is not acceptable, so is there an acceptable inflationary increase that we can factor into our operating costs?
I'll start off with that one. I think the key message that we want you to hear is the same as regular business and always, we want you to put in what your costs are that you expect in 2023 that it will take to operate your business. And then what we do is we take everybody's cost and we look at the full system impact. We look at what the City of Toronto budget is, and we do our best to establish per diems, paying everybody what their approved costs are and what you have identified is what your actual costs are forecasted to be. So put in what you are expecting that your expenses are, and we will do our analysis of your individual locations and of the whole system and see what our budget is and do our best to fund everybody at what those numbers are.
Okay, I understand that, but again, given the fact that inflationary costs have fluctuated or increased significantly, and to give the operators a better guideline as to how we can complete the budget in an efficient and in a timely manner without delay, it would be very helpful if we are given some sort of guidance on the, I guess I would say, acceptable inflationary costs that we may be permitted to be factored into our 2023 operating expenses.
Hi, Cecilia. Oh, sorry, Faye, I'm just don't mind jumping in for a moment. Cecilia, so yes, the comments you bring up, and my name's Jason again, I'm the manager of financial review service providers. With respect to inflation, we certainly understand, like, you want to put forth a reasonable value so you can get approved in a timely fashion, but it would be very difficult for us to provide you with an actual estimate. Like, inflationary pressures are something that are done on a macro level. So to Faye's point a moment earlier, the best guidance we can give you is to anticipate as best as you can what your inflationary pressures will be with your operating costs, and put forth that submission, and we'll review individually and holistically based on our budget. I know that you're perhaps looking for something more specific, but in truth, we wouldn't be able to say it's 3% or 4%. We wouldn't be in a position to dictate or determine what that would be for you specifically.
The budget app will also ask you for variance explanations. Put the explanations in, and then we'll do the analysis. It asks you when the explanation is more than 10%. We'll do the analysis accordingly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. We have one question still with Cynthia, so if you have a moment, I'll unmute Cynthia, and which I've just done. Cynthia, over to you for your question.
I have a question regarding the public fee. So from what I'm understanding, we still have to put the fee that was freezed last year in the revenue section, and we have to put our increased expense on the expense side. So my fear is that the budget will be unbalanced and we couldn't submit it if we don't reflect the actual revenue that we'll get.
Hi, I can answer that. It's Adelina. So the fee that you're going to enter in your budget should reflect a 2023 fee. So even though you're not going to be charging families this fee if you're participating in Canada-wide, we still are asking that you set a fee and enter that in your budget so we can understand what the fee would be, and also how to establish a appropriate per diem to fund you for fee subsidy based on that fee and those costs. And that's why it's really important to enter your expected costs for 2023. So the 2022 fee freeze rate that you're going to see on your fee memo here that's circled in the red circle on the last column here, that is being pulled from your 2022 budget. So you're not going to be entering that same fee in this 2023 budget.
Okay, thank you. That was clear.
You're welcome.
So Faye, Adelina, I just want to make sure I'm mindful of time. There's a few more questions in the Q&A. Do we have a chance to answer those two right now, or should we perhaps take that towards the end?
In the Q&A function, in the written function, I'm still catching up. So I'll do my best, and I think we go on with the presentation.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so another part of the application that's new, oh, back. Going way too far here. Back again. Okay, we're at the right place. Okay, so another part of the application that's new that you're not going to notice when you're submitting your budget, but you may notice afterwards. So once Children's Services begins analysis of the submitted budget, an email may be sent to the agency primary contact indicating that action is required in the budget. Okay, so if during analysis there were changes that needed to be made to the budget, those changes will need to be acknowledged. So as I said, an email will be sent to the agency primary contact stating that action is required. The steps to complete this will be included in the email, but essentially what you'll need to do is you'll need to log into the online application, go to the financial application, and go to your childcare budget list. And then in the budget status column, you're going to see a new status for that submitted budget, which is pending operator action. So you would click on that, and then that's going to bring you to your budget summary page. There's going to be a link for the snapshot. You're going to click on that link, and then the signing authorities for the agency will review that and then click acknowledge. Okay. Once that is completed, the budget status will change to being reviewed. And as I mentioned, there will be these steps explained in the email if the email is sent. If you don't get that email, that's fine. That means there's no changes for you to acknowledge. And there'll also be more information on this change in the budget guidelines. Okay, I don't think there's any questions related to this. We can move on. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, as I mentioned before, every year we do change some of the rules in the budget to again help with the submission of an accurate budget. So there's 3 new rules that we wanted to bring to your attention this year. So Rule 21 would identify if staffing entered on tab 4, so on the staffing tab, doesn't meet minimum staffing requirements as per the Child Care and Early Years Act. Okay, so for example, if you have in your capacity and enrollment tab planned for a room of 15 toddlers, but in your staffing, you've only put 1 staff for that room of 15 toddlers, you will get an error. It will be a hard stop, sorry. And you won't be able to continue until you correct that staffing, okay, and put the correct amount of staffing for the children that you plan to have. The next rule, Rule 196, is also a hard stop rule. So this will come up if the total fee revenue that's entered on tab 5 in the Revenue and Expenses tab is higher than the total revenue from fees that's generated on tab 3 on the Capacity and Enrollment tab. So if you look at the screenshot here, this is what I refer to as the big green number on tab 3. So that big green number is auto-generated, and essentially it captures all the information you've entered previously and says if you were full 100% of the time based on your planned enrollment with 100% full fee children, this is the number, the maximum fee revenue you would be able to generate, okay? So essentially generating more revenue than this is probably not possible. If there's a valid reason for that, please do connect with your consultant. But this rule will prevent operators from entering, usually in error, fees that are higher than revenue from fees that are higher than this number on tab 3. Okay. So that will need, so the rule, you'll need to either make that fee revenue equal to or less than the total revenue from fees. The next rule is Rule 365. So this is a warning, and it's just a warning that comes up if the operating capacity that's entered on tab 3 of the budget application, again on the capacity enrollment tab, has changed from previous budget year, okay, either going up or going down, and you'll need to provide an explanation to proceed. So a good example, as Adelina mentioned earlier, if post-COVID you really do see that your numbers need to be adjusted going forward, and you will plan either up, less or more operating capacity, you'll require, well, the budget will ask you for an explanation in order to proceed, okay? And that is it for the new rules, and that's the end of my part of the presentation.
I think we have a few questions in the Q&A, so I'm going to open those up if we have time for that.
Yeah, and Jason, a number of them are related to Canada-wide. I was typing as fast as I could. Dina, can you pop on here and answer a couple of those that you can see in the Q&A? Because we want to make sure that we give as much information as possible. And Dina, I can't see you, and I'm not sure if you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, good. Can you see
I
the
did it again.
questions?
Yeah, sorry, I'm sharing my screen so it looks small. But
Yeah.
so if you have a child in school age program, then they are paying, like you need to refund them the 25% of the cost that they paid. We are waiting for clarification on some of the interpretation on 2023 and moving forward. But just to let you know where our thought process is for 2023 is that we're considering our approach is not to create a dual rate for school age, where we would have a Canada-wide school age rate and a non-Canada-wide school age rate, which has a 50% reduction applied to it. Because mostly these children would be considered kindergarten age, and so maybe it's applying the kindergarten rate to these children which do have the reduction on the fee memo. So that's the thought process that we're working towards, and we're just finalizing that. We know that there are some underage children in school age programs, so children are eligible, and in 2023 you refund them the fees that they paid. Going forward, we're still working on the details, and that's why we didn't have the school age rate there, because our goal was not to create a dual approach. But that's a work in progress. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if there's any.
Yeah, there's a couple more. So one is about the 25% and the 50% and when that takes effect.
Okay, so the 25% is as soon as you are you receive your money. So some of you will have already received your approval email, then you received your service contract or your amending agreement. Then we have to receive that contract or amending agreement signed, and that means that it's when we receive it, then our general manager Shanley McAmey will sign it, and that is considered executed. We will send you will get a copy of that. When we have an executed agreement, the next step is payment. When we pay you, you get a payment notice, but not until you actually receive the money that is in your banking institution. That's when that 20-day trigger starts. And at that time, you must refund your families the 25% of the fees that they have paid, the base fees that they have paid, and moving forward, reduce your fees 25%. The province has clarified that what they meant by the end of 2022 is 50% is December 31st. So most of you are not offering care on that day. So really, realistically, it's January 1st. You must reduce your 2022 fee freeze rate down to 50%. And that's what you charge families. we recognize that you're going to need another funding amount before that time, and we're looking at what an advance would look like probably in mid-December. Sorry, Fake, if there's more, can you read them out? I'm kind of getting lost. I keep moving.
Yeah, it keeps moving. I think that's it. I answered Ruth's, and I think you did, oh, further to the 6-year-olds. Okay.
Faye, can I read a question in the chat? It's about the parent portion of subsidy. So
Yes.
we can give a short answer on that. So it's when and how will we receive the parent portion of subsidy fee for 2022 for centers opting into CWELC? So that's the fee subsidy report. Evan, can you speak to that?
Well, let me speak.
Oh.
I think what you asked is when and how we'll receive the funding. So the funding that you are receiving after you are approved is a lump sum allocation that is to cover all the refunds to full fee families and the refunds to fee subsidy families. It is inclusive of your total capacity. So that is the funding you are receiving. How you calculate the refund amount for a fee subsidy family is a report that you use that we talked about at the town hall that has executed and can be accessed as soon as you have been your agreement has been executed and we've paid you, sorry, we've funded you. That report you will identify how much the assessed fee has been reduced based on the composition of the family. So you have to log in through online portal and look at that report in order to calculate the refund based on your attendance and your attendance policy. And then, yeah, Evan, you can speak to that report more. That's helpful.
Did we want to wait till the end to see how much time we have left to speak about the report like we did last time? Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'll continue then with there's just a couple more slides and then we can have questions till the end and we can speak to that report.
And Adelina, if I can just jump in quickly, because I don't think we've mentioned it yet, that in regards to the fee memo that's generated on the application, we understand, as this was mentioned, there will be changes in the coming years and the fee memo will require changes. For this year, we didn't have the time, unfortunately, to get feedback and consult with operators on the changes, but we will do that in coming years with the next changes to come. Okay, so feedback will be welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. Okay, so I'll just cover some of the budget training and support and resources that will be available. So we sent an e-blast yesterday with some information on budget support sessions. The dates are October 20th, November 3rd, November 9th, and November 17th. The registration is required and it's a 1-hour time slot with one-on-one support. This will be from one of our TCS staff that will be supporting you for the hour. So again, please register. The email also indicated the time slots, so please email Tony with your preferred slot. We may need to offer other time slots if that one's not available. As always, operators may continue to reach out to their consultants and budget coordinators and request an individual WebEx session with their consultant if they need to. That is a time that's mutually convenient for both of you. Okay, so next slide. So for support and other resources, if you get that message at the top that says please contact TCS Help Desk, that number is available as well for technical support. We have our budget guidelines, audit guidelines, and then some user guidelines for online services and some other forms on our public website. Excuse me, the district consultants and the contract and finance team are available to assist you with business related questions. And contacts information can be found on the public A to Z listing, or you can log into your online services to find your TCS contacts. We are creating a new operator onboarding document that will be a new resource provided in the coming months. Hopefully by the end of November, this will be available. And what this document will provide is information and resources for new operators and new agency financial staff. So it will have all the resources and links to information, and it will all kind of be compiled in one spot that will be easier to find information, and your consultant can use that to support like new operators that start, and agencies can use it as well on their own. So we'll provide more information when that's ready. But we found that it was needed in the sense that it's hard to find information when it's everywhere and when you don't know what to look for. So it's just kind of the one-stop shop, and then it'll bring you to where everything is located on the website. Next slide. So we have, in 2022, we completed the approved funding process by March 31st. We continue to modernize our technology to support a more efficient and streamlined budget process with new app features and a reduction in submitted documents that used to require a longer time to do this approved funding process and determine the cost of the system. We have to have all of the information in from all the budgets and operators before we can do this process. And that's why it's very important to adhere to the November 30th deadline. We'll be pushing for the same deadlines again in 2023, and we aim to have the approved funding completed by the same time, so by March 31st in 2023. The budget status is viewable in online services, and the approved budget snapshot reports are also available upon budget approval. The service agreement and schedules continue to be available in online services, and any Canada-wide funding will be communicated separately outside of this process. So it is not part of this budget approved funding process. So look out for information from the CWELC team on that funding for 2023. And that brings us to the end of the presentation. So now we can open up, actually, I'll go to Evan to show, or just to, I don't know, how do you want to do, because that took a little bit longer last time to show the report, or do we have more questions to answer
maybe
first?
if there's questions to answer first, we can do that.
I think we're up to date on the questions in the Q&A. I'm not sure if there are hands up.
Yes, there are hands up, and people have been waiting patiently there. Barbara's one of the first. So, Barbara, I will unmute you, and you can put forth your question. You're unmuted now.
Some of those might be legacy hands. I can see 2 of them were already asked.
Okay, so I don't. Go ahead, Dina.
Yeah, Jason, I just wanted to jump in and just to clarify a few of the questions that I saw. I'm not sure if they got answered. I was trying to, but didn't seem to go through. So one question was about fee subsidy families, and I just want to reiterate and make it exceedingly clear. Fee subsidy families are eligible for the Canada-wide reduction. Absolutely, 100%. In addition to, they are not held to the $12 floor. Right? So if you have some families that aren't going to get a refund because your fee is $12 or lower because they're full fee families, fee subsidy families, that $12 floor does not apply to them, and they get 25% of their, based on their family composition and their family's composition eligibility, 25% of their assessed fee is reduced. But because centers don't know the family composition, because you might only see one child, even though you're the fee collector, there might be more children, you don't know their eligibility. That's why us, as the assessor of the fee, we determined what that percentage is. And that's why it is imperative that you log on as you do every month to confirm what the family's assessed fee is in order to charge them the correct fee, that you log on and you look at those reports. Evan is preparing to show you those reports, but those reports will go all the way back to April and tell you all the families, all the fee subsidy families that were enrolled in your center, who you are the fee collector for, how much the difference is, what the reduction is. So because there is that question, it's really important for you to understand this Canada-wide funding is both for full fee families and for fee subsidy families. Another question was about how do we opt in for 2023? If you are enrolled in 2022, you have an executed agreement, you've received your funding, you're automatically in for 2023. It is your action if you want to withdraw for 2023 to let us know. So just like a service agreement, it just keeps rolling annually. So you're in for 2022. If you plan to not opt in for 2022, but plan to opt in for 2023, that's a different thing. We have not established the opt-in process because, as you know, we're waiting for the guidelines for 2023. But, talk to your district consultant and stuff if you want to let them know that you're planning to opt in for 2023. But I think that question was more in relation to understanding that it's rolling, just like your whole service contract is. And there was one more question about the tools that we've created, and the tool that we created in order to determine how much you might refund your family based on for full fee families, that Excel tool that is completely optional. It is based on a daily fee. We've been asked a number of times, what about monthly fees? We really work on daily fees. So that is the approach that we work on. When we're going through this Canada-wide process, again, it's daily fees. If you want to use the tool, you can convert your monthly fee into a daily fee. As you know, when we work on your monthly fee, we translate it into a daily fee using 21.75 as an average month. You might do something different. I don't know how you prorate your monthly fee into a daily fee when a family enrolls mid-month, so on. So that's why we're not going to take on creating a way to prorate a monthly fee. You go ahead and prorate your monthly fee into a daily fee and use that tool. Okay, those are the ones that I saw off the top, and I'll hand it over to Evan. Thanks.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time left, but I am going to share, and before I start, what I want to be clear on is that this information that I'm sharing was presented in the town hall in September. So this is not new information, and you can request the presentation from the September town hall and today's presentation from your district consultant, okay? So we're going to share what we can with the time that we have. Okay, so this again is from the town hall presentation, okay, that you can request from your consultant. And first we see an example of the fee subsidy fee reduction report. So this fee reduction report is for subsidized families that you are the fee collector for that family. Okay, so those are the families that will show on the report. I'm going to go over it a little bit and then I'm going to skip to the next slides while you'll see how to access it. Okay, so this report is not for full fee families. Remember, we don't have the information on your full fee families. So we have the information for subsidized families, and this is what we're going to help you calculate. So on this report, it will be accessible. There was a question on when will this be, when we'll be able to see this. So if you've opted into the Canada-wide program, once you've received your signed, executed, I forget the exact term Dina used, service agreement, that's when you'll be able to see this report online, okay? So, and in the operator portal is where you'll see it. So on this report, you'll see the household and the household ID, and then you'll see the assessed parental fee. So as Dina said, we work with daily fees, so you'll see the daily fee here. And then you'll see the Canada-wide reduction. Okay, so the Canada-wide reduction is the calculation that's determined by the ministry and the guidelines that says whether or not some of the children in this family are eligible for Canada-wide, for a Canada-wide reduction, sorry. So the first example you see here, the assessed parental fee is $16.89 and there is a 0 Canada-wide reduction. So this is an example maybe of a family who have 2 children that are 10 and 12, say, okay, not eligible for a Canada-wide reduction. So their parental fee does not change. They are in care. So here we have a column that shows then the potential days. So this family for this month that had 21 days, right, was there for the whole month. And so their assessed parental fee is 21 times the parental fee. Then you might have other families, and I'm not sure which example falls in the right one here, but you may have some families that say have a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old, right? So one child is eligible for the Canada-wide reduction. So that Canada-wide reduction might not be 25%. It might be 19%. It might be a different percentage because not all the children in their family are eligible. And those children might be at other locations that you're not even aware of as the fee collector, right? So that's how, if you notice that the Canada-wide reduction is not 25%, it is because not all the children in the family are eligible. Okay, on the second page of the report, we are giving the explanation of the calculation and a general example. Okay, so you can always refer back to that when you're supporting your families in understanding why they did not get a 25% discount, or even for yourself and understanding why. Okay, and then again with the potential days, you have, for example, the last example is a family who may have enrolled partway through the month, and then the potential days would be 17 days. This report is accessible in the attendance application, okay? The reason being is it mimics in certain ways the enrollment summary report. So the enrollment summary report is that report that you can generate ahead of time to see based on what we know for the next month. So assuming, say, the family is there for the whole month, this is their daily fee and this is what they should be charged, okay? This report functions in the same way that we say, assuming that the child is there for the full month, this is what their potential days are, their assessed fee with their reduction, and this is now their new fee, okay, the new parental fee that you should be charging. When your attendance is processed, okay, and confirmed, then you would go to your financial application to get your invoice details, and that is really that final amount of what was paid for that child and what should have been collected, okay, the number of days that should have been collected for. So that's essentially how this report works. Where to access it is, again, through this is all in the town hall presentation that if you haven't requested, you can from your consultant. So you would go to the online portal, log in, go to the attendance application, and then you would click on the reports. After clicking on attendance to launch the attendance application, you would click on reports. And then in the same place where your enrollment summary reports are shown, you would see the Canada-wide fee reduction report, okay? And this will show from April onwards, okay? And in the same way as the enrollment summary reports are generated, you would see the next month after we run the month end. So currently, if you were to log in and you have access because all the boxes are checked for you to be part of the program, you will have access to this. You will not see November yet. Once we run the month end, which the month end dates are accessible on our website, on the external website, you'll then see, so it's around the 20th usually, you'll see the next month show. Okay, so that's at that point that you'll see November. So at this point, you would see from April to October. Okay, that's the quick summary. We have a few minutes. Any questions? Dina, or do you want to add something?
I'd just like to jump in. If you could go back to the report.
Yeah.
One, I see a lot of questions. The 50% is off the 2022 fee freeze rate. So the fee freeze rate is now a point in time that we are trying to reduce on a go forward basis. So 50% off the 2022 fee freeze rate. When is the report accessible? Yvonne mentioned that, but it's when your agreement has been executed and we've added that payment type. So you will not be able to access this report until you've been approved and you've executed your service agreement. That's why it's important for you to return that service agreement or amending agreement as soon as possible. Who is responsible to refund fee subsidy families? You are. The operator is. Remember, the allocation that we are sending you, the lump sum of money for Canada-wide, is for you to refund full fee families and fee subsidy families and reduce their costs going forward. So Yvonne, can you highlight on the assessed parent fee? Like move your cursor. So assessed parent fee, that's the one you're used to working with. Canada-wide,
Sorry.
the CWELCC column, that reduction, that's the one that you can use for how much that's the cost per day for each month. So you calculate that based on your attendance, right? That's what their refund is. And then the column going forward is the new parental fee. That's the fee you're going to charge your families on a go forward basis, because that's the fee minus the Canada-wide reduction. Okay, so I just want to really nail that because I'm seeing some still questions come through. Also, Yvonne mentioned that this town hall presentation can be received from your consultant. However, the video is also online. So if you go to the Canada-wide website, that's toronto.ca/CWELCC, you can find the town hall presentation there and watch the whole video. Okay, I just wanted to reiterate those. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I think that's the end of our time as well. So I don't remember who was going to end off, but I will. I have a couple of things just to say. There's been several lovely comments in the Q&A, thanking us for the work. We really appreciate that. Again, back to you. Thanks for all the hard work that all of you are doing. There's an awful lot of questions about Canada-wide. That's what we're here for. We'll continue to answer them as best as we can. That question about the 6-year-olds, even this morning prior to this presentation, we had a meeting. We're still unclear about some things, so we're doing our best to find that out, and we'll communicate as soon as we know more. And as always, your consultants who work very hard to support you are a resource, and they're learning just as much as we are as we go through all of this. So reach out to them for questions, and between all of us, we'll put our heads together and see what we can come up with along with the province, who we're having almost daily contact with now, to see what we can find out and get answers to the things that are in front of us as we transform. So with that, Jason, Adelina, Sue, Tony, Yvonne, Dina, and I say thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
And we're still live. So before we go into practice again, Adeline, are you able to do that into practice session? If not, then I'll just end.